Chapter 5, Project Scope Management. But first, let's define what is Project Scope Management. Project Scope Management. It is what the teams do to make sure that the project includes all the work relevant to achieving the project's objectives.
Scope: all the work involved in creating the products of the project and the process used to create them. Dito nakasama yung mga process, mga operations para ma-define at makontrol lahat ng hindi dapat at ang mga dapat isama sa project. Deliverable: a project produced as a part of a project such as hardware or software, planning documents or meeting minutes. In addition, deliverables are the output of each development phase, described in a quantifiable way. All deliverables must be described in a sufficient level of details so that they can be differentiated from related deliverables. Example, a daily report versus weekly report or a red marker versus green marker.
In this figure, we can see the project scope management processes. First, there is a planning. Under planning, we have scope planning, scope definition, and create work breakdown structure. Second is monitoring and controlling. Under this, we have scope verification and scope control.
All in all, this figure shows how the scope management plan works. This includes how will you prepare a detailed scope statement, how you will create the work breakdown structure, how you will manage changes to the scope, and how you will get formal acceptance of the project variables.
So we have here the sample of scope management. First is project name, which contain yung name nga ng project na gagawin natin. Then next is yung introduction, kung saan naman nagbibigay ng briefly information or intro sa project na ating gagawin. Then next is preparing for the scope statement. Dito tayo nangunguha or nagka-gather ng mga detail para sa scope statement natin. So, dapat natin kausapin yung mga project sponsors, suppliers natin, para malaman natin kung ano talaga yung gusto nilang mangyari sa project or ano dapat yung maging output ng project natin or kalalabasan. Magagamit din natin yung scope statement na yan sa paggawa natin ng work breakdown structure or yung WBS natin. So, WBS naman, dito natin makikita kung gaano haba ba yung time na dapat i-allot natin sa isang process, kung anong ba lahat ng process na kailangan gawin natin para sa project. And next is yung verifying completion of project deliverables. So, pag gagawa natin ng WBS natin, or scope statement, syempre, kailangan natin ipacheck to sa ating project sponsor and sa mga committee, kung meron pa silang gustong idagdag or ibawas, or meron pa silang hindi nagustuhan sa ginawa natin. And last, sa monthly request for changes to project scope. Tulad nga sabi ko kanina, kung may gustong idagdag or ibawas yung sponsor natin, so dito natin gagawin yun. Dito tayo magdadagdag, magbabawas, or mag-i-edit ng kung ano man na gusto nilang ipagawa sa
Table 5.2 or Sample Project Charter. Makikita nyo dito yung project title, project start date, project manager, at yung project objectives. Makikita nyo rin dito yung mga approaches, roles and responsibilities of the stakeholders, signed off or yung signatures ng mga stakeholders. At sa last part, makikita nyo dito yung comments ng mga stakeholders.
Table 5.3, Order Defining Project Scope. So, we need to plan further and write down all the intermediate and final deliverables that the team will produce over the course of the project. So, meron tayo ditong project charter, preliminary scope statement version 1. As time progresses, the scope of the project should become more clear and specific.
Creating the work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure. Deliverable-oriented grouping of the work involved in a project that defines the total scope of the project. Foundation document that provides the basis for planning and managing project schedules, costs, resources, and changes. A project is characterized by time-limited activities and is assigned fixed time frames and costs. When it is finished, a project must fulfill the stakeholder needs it was designed to address. The project management has to plan for the schedule, the fixed cost of the functional completeness of the project, and assign responsibilities. Decomposition. subdividing project deliverables into smaller pieces, work package, task at the lowest level of the WBS.
Figure 5.2. Sample intranet work breakdown structure organized by product. Mapapansin natin na sa area na to, nagpo-provide ito ng basis about sa may organization. In this case, there is a main box or item on the work breakdown structure na para sa developing ng website design, homepage design, marketing pages, and sales pages. Itong main box nito, itong area na to, pinapakita niya lang yung mga same groupings ng work within the project. Figure 5.3. Sample intranet work breakdown structure organized by phase. This area presents the information of hierarchical form. As we can see, level 0 represents the entire project. So that means level 0 is the top level of the work breakdown structure among these 4 levels. The next level down is level 1, which represent the major products or phases of the project. Next is level 2. Naka-include dito yung sub-level ng level 1. Ito yung tinatawag nating concept. Under concept is the evaluate current system, define requirements, define specific functionality, define risk and risk management approach, develop project plan, and brief web development team. And lastly, under the level 2 item called define requirements is the level 3. Includes the user requirements, content requirements, system requirements, and server owner requirements.
Kung kanina nakita natin sa figure 5.3 ang intranet work breakdown structure by phase, ngayon naman makikita natin sa table 5.4 ang intranet work breakdown structure in tabular form. Dito sa figure 5.4, makikita natin yung intranet work breakdown structure and Gantt chart in Microsoft Project. Dito, makikita natin yung pangalan ng mga task at dito naman, makikita natin yung mga schedule or yung allotted time para matapos ang isang task.
Table 5.5. Executing tasks for JWD Consulting's work breakdown structure. Pinapakita lang dito sa table na to yung mga under sa pag-execute ng isang task sa work breakdown structure. So, 3.0 executing, 3.1 survey, 3.2 user input, 3.3 internet content, and under that, templates and tools, articles, links, ask the expert, user request feature. After that, meron tayong 3.4, intranet site design, intranet site construction, site testing, site promotion, site rollout, and product benefits measurement. Approaches to developing work breakdown structure. Analogy approach. This might be very helpful. If you have a similar project, you would tailor it to your project. That is simple for you to break down based on your past experience. Top-down approach. This approach states that you need to take the biggest task or module in the project and break them down. It requires more logic and structure, and generally it is a preferred method for creating work breakdown structure. This approach will identify the solution first and then dissect the solution into a smaller step required to implement it. Bottom-up approach. Start with a specific task and roll them up. This is a very straightforward. Pick the specific task that can be easily done and complete it. Bottom-up method is ideal for brainstorming a solution to a problem. Mind mapping approach. This technique that uses branches radiating out from a core idea to structure thoughts and ideas. In this approach, we need to write the task in a non-linear, branching format and then create the work breakdown structure. Figure 5.6. Sample mind mapping approach for creating a
work breakdown structure. Figure 5.7, resulting work breakdown structure in chart form. The work breakdown structure dictionary and the scope baseline. Work breakdown structure dictionary, document that describe detailed information about each work breakdown structure item. The work breakdown structure dictionary describes each component of the work breakdown structure with milestone, deliverables, activities, scope, and sometimes dates, resources, cost, quality. Scope baseline, used to measure performance in meeting project scope goals. Approve project scope statement and its work breakdown structure and work breakdown structure dictionary that can be changed only through formal change control procedures and is used as a basis for comparison. Scope verification involves formal acceptance of the completed project scope by the stakeholders. Acceptance is often achieved by a customer inspection and then sign off on key deliverables. Scope control involves controlling changes to the project scope. It is the process of monitoring the status of the project and the project or the product scope and managing the changes to the scope baseline. Goals of scope control influence the factors that cause scope changes. Assure changes are processed according to procedures developed as part of integrated change control. Manage changes when they occur. Good scope control allows the changing and adding of critical tasks without adding in unnecessary items or items that would be best suited for a later version that if added could cause a project to miss its critical deadlines. Best practices for avoiding scope problems. Keep the scope realistic. Involve user in project scope management. Use off-the-shelf hardware and software whenever possible. Lastly, follow good project management processes. Suggestion for improving user input. Develop a good project selection processes and insist that the sponsor are from the user organization. Have users on the project team in important roles. Have regular meetings with defined agendas and have users sign up on key deliverables presented at meetings. Deliver something to users and sponsor on regular basis. Don't promise to deliver when you know you can't. And collocate users with developers. Suggestion for reducing incomplete and changing requirements. Develop and follow a requirements management process. Use techniques such as prototyping, use case modeling, and JAD to get more user involvement. Put requirements in writing and keep them current. Create a requirements management database for documenting and controlling requirements. Provide adequate testing and conduct testing throughout the project lifecycle. Review changes from a system perspective. Emphasize completion dates to help focus on what's most important. Allocate resources especially for handling change requests, enhancement like NWA did with ResNet.
Now, let's talk about project time management. To begin, let us first answer the question, what is time? In the science, generally, time is simply what a clock reads. Now, what is project time management? Basically, it is the efficient use of time by means of good organization, efficient productivity, and proper planning. As you can see on the screen, project schedule is important because effective project scheduling plays a crucial role in ensuring project success. To keep projects on track, we have to set a realistic time frame for project schedule is used to estimate what resources are needed at what time and for how long. We have to take note about the project time management processes. The first process is activity definition, wherein this process identifies and documents what you need to do to produce the project's deliverables. In other words, it identifies the project task. The second process is the activity sequencing, where it helps you put your project work in the right order so that you can make efficient use of the project's resources and deliver as quickly as possible. Next is activity resource estimating. It helps you to work out the resources you need to achieve the plan that you want to do. In this process, you'll work out what human resources, equipment, and supplies you need plus the quantity you need of each. The next process is activity duration estimating. This step is where the hard work of calculating how long each task is going to take happens. During this process, you'll work out how long it's going to take to do each activity, using the resources that you have identified. Don't forget to take into account resource availability and holidays with your activity durations. Just because a task only takes 8 hours doesn't mean it will be finished by the morning. After that, the next process is the schedule development. This is when you can finally put together your project schedule. With all the information gathered from the above processes, it should be easy. After all, you've gone through all of this to get the schedule, which is a critical document for managing your project's performance. Take note, your schedule doesn't have to be a Gantt chart. Lastly, the last process is schedule control, in which this process gives you the tools you need to monitor and update your project schedule, making that changes are managed appropriately and that you keep control of the timings of your project. Preparing your project schedule and tracking it afterward are large pieces of work, but it's worth it to know that you have a schedule that you can be confident about. The 5 processes involved in the stage of planning are the activity definition, activity sequencing, activity resource estimating, activity duration estimating, and schedule development. As you can see, the outputs are already on the screen. And on the stage of monitoring and controlling, the process involved is the schedule control, which, as you can also see, the outputs are on the screen already. Activity definition identifies the deliverables at the lowest level in the work breakdown structure, which is the level of work packages. Each work package is decomposed into smaller components called schedule activities to provide a basis for estimating, scheduling, executing, and monitoring and controlling the project work. During this activity definition, one answers the question, what has to be done? Other questions like who will do the activity, how much time will it take, or when has it to be started or finished will be answered later. The entire schedule activities that are scheduled and performed on the project are compiled into a single list of activities called the activity list. The usefulness of the activity list depends upon its accuracy and completeness. It is an essential input for building the schedule. Activity list is generally defined by elements like an identifier, name of those who are responsible for the work, and description of each activity is sufficient detail so that the scope of the work can be thoroughly understood by the project team members. Activity list is created in the define activities process in the time management knowledge area. It is created after the requirements documentation, project scope statement, work breakdown structure, and the work breakdown structure dictionary has been created and they are under control. Therefore, it is important for project managers to involve the team in defining the activity list so that the estimates are more accurate. Activity attributes typically refers to the specific components that make up an activity. This can include descriptive factors of the activity at the onset or can also refer specific characteristics that may become relevant at the later phase of an activity. Activity attributes can be sorted, organized, and or summarized according to some specific categories. Some types of activity attributes can include those related to time needed to complete specific components, cost related to completion of an activity or of some specific components, activity codes, responsible persons, and or persons involved in the activity, specific locations in which the activity may be taking place, and or other miscellaneous categories into which these attributes can be conveniently and appropriately organized. Activity attributes can also include discussion of specific constraints that may make completion more difficult. What is milestone in project management? A milestone is a specific point in time within the project life cycle used to measure the progress of a project toward its ultimate goal. In project management, milestones are used as signal posts for a project start or end state, a need for external review or input, a need for budget checks, submission of major deliverable, and much more. Milestones have a fixed date but no duration. Examples include obtaining customer sign-off on key documents or completion of specific products.
diagramming method refers to a schedule network diagramming technique in which the scheduled activities within a given project are represented by the use of arrows. Process for creating AOA diagrams. Number 1, find all of the activities that start at node. Draw their finished nodes and draw arrows between node 1 and those finished nodes. Put the activity letter or name and duration estimate on the associated arrow. Number 2, continue drawing the network diagram working from left to right. Look for bursts and merges. Bursts occur when a single node is followed by 2 or more activities. A merge occurs when 2 or more nodes precede a single node. Number 3, continue drawing the project network diagram until all activities are included on the diagram that have dependencies. And last, as a rule of thumb, all arrowheads should face toward the right and no arrow should cross on an AOA network diagram. Precedence diagramming method. Nodes or boxes are used to represent activities. Arrows show activity dependencies as depicted. There are 4 types of dependencies that you need to be aware of before creating a precedence diagram. First, the finish start. In this dependency, an activity cannot start before a previous activity has ended. For example, you cannot cook a stew before gathering all the ingredients. Therefore, the activity gather ingredients needs to finish before the activity cook stew can begin. This is the most commonly used dependency. Second, start. In this dependency, there is a defined relationship between the start of activities. Third, finish. In this dependency, there is a defined relationship between the end dates of activities. And the last one, start-finish. In this dependency, there is a defined relationship between the start of one activity and the end date of a successor activity. This dependency is rarely used. You'll notice that the precedence diagram has the following features. Events. The start and end oval shapes signify events. An event is a point in time having no duration, which is also known as a milestone. A precedence diagram will always have a start and an end event. Next, activity. There are 10 activities. Each activity is represented by a node. Next, dependencies. Each node, activities, and events is connected by using unidirectional arrows. This signifies the relationship between activities. The relationship between activities can either be predecessors or successors. Resource estimating. Before estimating activity durations, you must have a good idea of the quantity and type of resources that will be assigned to each activity. A resource breakdown structure is a hierarchical structure that identifies the project's resources by category and type. Activity duration estimating. Duration includes the actual amount of time worked on an activity plus elapsed time. Effort is the number of work days or work hours required to complete a task. Effort does not normally equal duration. People doing the work should help create estimates and an expert should review them. 3-point estimates. Instead of providing activity estimates as a discrete number such as 4 weeks, it's often helpful to create a 3-point estimate. 3-point estimates are needed to PERT and Monte Carlo simulations. Schedule development. The ultimate goal is to create a realistic project schedule that provides a basis for monitoring project progress for the time dimension of the project. Important tools and techniques include Gantt charts, critical path analysis, critical chain scheduling, and PERT analysis that we will discuss later.
SMART is an acronym that you can use to guide your goal setting. S. S for specific. Your goal should be clear and specific. Otherwise, you won't be able to focus your efforts or feel truly motivated to achieve it. When drafting your goal, try to answer these questions. What do I want to accomplish? Why is this goal important? Who is involved? Where is it located? Which resources or limits are involved? For example, imagine that you are currently a marketing executive and you would like to become head of marketing. A specific goal could be, I want to gain the skills and experience necessary to become head of marketing within my organization so that I can build my career and lead a successful team. M for measurable. It's important to have measurable goals so that you can track your progress and stay motivated. Assessing progress helps you to stay focused, meet your deadlines, and feel the excitement of getting closer to achieving your goal. A measurable goal should be addresses questions such as how much, how many, how will I know when it is accomplished. For example, you might measure your goal of acquiring the skills to become head of marketing by determining that you will have complete the necessary training, courses, and gain the relevant experience within 5 years' time. A for assignable. Your goal also needs to be realistic and attainable to be successful. In other words, it should be stretch your abilities but still remain possible. When you set an assignable goal, you may be able to identify previously overlooked opportunities or resources that can bring you closer to it. An assignable goal will usually answer this question: how can I accomplish this goal? How realistic is the goal based on other constraints such as financial factors? For example, you might need to ask yourself whether developing the skills required to become head of marketing is realistic based on your existing experience. Qualifications, for example, do you have the time to complete your required training effectively? Are the necessary resources available to you? Can you afford to do it? R is realistic. This step is about ensuring that your goal matters to you and that it also aligns with other realistic goals. We all need support and assistance in achieving our goals, but it's important to retain control over them. So make sure that your plans drive everyone forward, but that you're still responsible for achieving your own goals. A relevant goal can answer yes to this question. Does this seem worthwhile? Is this the right time? Does this match our other efforts or needs? Am I the right person to reach this goal? It is applicable in the current social economic environment. For example, you might want to gain the skills to become head of marketing within your organization, but it is the right time to undertake the required training or work toward additional qualifications. Are you sure that you're the right person for the head of marketing? Have you considered your spouse's goals? For example, if you want to start a family, would you completing training in your free time make this more difficult? For the T, time frame. Every goal needs target date. so that you have deadline to focus on something to work toward. This part of SMART goal criteria helps to prevent every task from taking priority over your longer term goals. A time frame goal will usually answer this question. When? What can I do 6 months from now? What can I do 6 weeks from now? What can I do today? For example, gaining the skills to become head of marketing may require additional training or experience. As we mentioned earlier, how long will it take you to acquire these skills? Do you need further training so that you are eligible for certain exams or qualifications? It's important to give yourself a realistic time frame for accomplishing the smaller goals that are necessary to achieving your final objective.
Method. It helps you to plan all tasks that must be completed as part of a project. A further benefit of critical path analysis is that it helps you to identify the minimum length of time needed to complete a project. Where you need to run an accelerated project, it helps you to identify which project steps you should accelerate to complete the project within the available time. How to use CPM. As with Gantt charts, the essential concept behind critical path analysis is that you cannot start some activities until others are finished. These activities need to be completed in a sequence, with each stage being more or less completed before the next stage can begin. These are sequential activities. Other activities are not dependent on completion of any other task. You can do this at any time before and after a particular stage is reached. These are non-dependent or parallel tasks. As you can see on the screen, the figure shows on how to determine the critical path for Project X. Let us assume the figures that all their durations are in days. As you can see in Path 1, the arrows are connected to each other from activity A to D to H and to J. And to compute their length is to add all the durations, which is the highest, the longest path through the network diagram will be the critical path for Project X, and that is the path 2, which is the activity B, E, H to J.
Using critical path analysis to make schedule trade-offs. These are the terms that you need to understand. Free slack or free float is the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the early start of any immediately following activities. Total slack or total float is the amount of time an activity may be delayed from its early start without delaying the planned project finish date. A forward pass through the network diagram determines the early start and the finish dates. A backward pass determines the late start and finish dates. The formula used for calculating early start and early finish dates. Early start of the activity equals early finish of predecessor's activity plus 1. Early finish of the activity equals activity duration plus early start of activity minus 1. The formula used for late start and late finish dates. Late start of activity equals late finish of activity minus activity duration plus 1. Late finish of activity equals late start of successor activity minus 1. As you can see, the example of pre-slack and total slack on the screen. Since the pre-slack can be delayed without delaying the early start, so the pre-slack is 0 day because the starting day is 1. And according to pre-slack, it can be delayed. And the total slack is 2 days because according to the definition of total slack, a total slack may be delayed from its early start without delaying the planned project. Using the critical path to shorten a project schedule. 3 main techniques for shortening schedules. Shortening durations of critical activities, tasks by adding more resources or changing their scope. Crashing. Activities by obtaining the greatest amount of schedule compression for the least incremental cost. Fast-tracking activities by doing them in parallel or overlapping them. Critical chain scheduling. Critical chain scheduling enables you to identify and focus on the shortest path of sequential activities in a project. Manage schedule variation at the global level rather than at task or activity level. As you can see on the screen, doing multitasking is more efficient than doing tasks one at a time because multitasking helps to finish the activities as soon as possible.
Buffers and critical chain. A buffer is additional time to complete a task. Murphy's Law states that if something can go wrong, it will. And Parkinson's Law states that work expands to fill the time allowed. In traditional statements, people often add a buffer to each task and use it if it's needed or not. Example of critical chain scheduling. X is representing the task done by limited resource and FB is representing the feeding buffer. And feeding buffer is the additional time added before task on the critical path. And the project buffer is the additional time added before the project's due date. As you can see here, the critical chain flows on the task done by the limited resource. And since there is a feeding buffer, there will be a project buffer before the completion, as it states that project buffer is the additional time added before the project's due date. PERT is a variation on critical path analysis that takes a slightly more skeptical view of time. Estimates made for each project stage. To use it, estimate the shortest possible time each activity will take, the most likely length of time, and the longest time that might be taken if the activity takes longer than expected. Use the formula to calculate the time to use for each project stage. Optimistic time plus 4 times most likely time plus pessimistic time divided by 6. For example, 8 workdays plus 4 times 10 workdays plus 24 workdays divided by 6 is equal 12 days, where optimistic time is equal to 8 days and most likely time is equal to 10 days and pessimistic time is equal to 24 days. Therefore, you'd use 12 days on the network diagram instead of 10 when using PERT for the above example. Schedule control. It performs reality checks on schedules. It allows for contingencies. Don't plan for everyone at work at 100% capacity at all time. Hold progress meetings with stakeholders and be clear and honest in communicating schedule issues. The goals of schedule control are to know the status of the schedule, influence factors that cause schedule changes, determine that the schedule has changed, and manage changes when they occur.
Working with people issues. Strong leadership helps projects succeed more than good PERT charts. Project managers should use empowerment, incentives, discipline, and negotiation. Using software to assist in time management. Software for facilitating communications help people exchange schedule-related information. Decision support models help analyze trade-offs that can be made. Project management software can help in various time management areas. Words of caution on using project management software. Many people misuse project management software because they don't understand important concepts and have not had training. You must enter dependencies to have dates, adjust automatically, and to determine the critical path. You must enter actual schedule information to compare plan and actual progress.
All in all, project time management is often cited as the main source of conflict on projects, and most IT projects exceed time estimates. Main processes include activity definition, activity sequencing, activity resource estimating, activity duration estimating, schedule development, and schedule control. Thank you for watching!